Good morning, Instagram. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Julie Brower, and I am currently serving as a TA for the Older Adult Division, and that is alongside our lead faculty, Christina Previtt and Dustin Jones. So it's Wednesday, Jerry on Ice Day. So let's go ahead and go over what's happening on the older adult front. We have a ton of courses coming up. So our next online cohort starts on January 3rd, and that is already over 30% sold out. So that is going to sell out real quick. So if you are thinking about getting into that, make sure you grab your spot ASAP. On the road, we are a ton of places in January. Let's see. So January 15th, we are in Tennessee at Onward. In January 8th, before that, we are in Michigan at Health HQ. And then in January 22nd, we are in Pennsylvania. So you can kind of kick off the year, getting some con ed in. If you guys have any questions about any of those courses online or live, just hit one of us up and we'll be happy to answer questions. Okay, so our topic today. On a mission to discharge homebound status. So a lot of you who are in the ICE community, been following for a long time, know that I was in the acute care space for about 6 years, and I just recently switched in September to home health. In the hospital, my mission was, how do I get these folks who are really sick hooked on health, moving them as far away from sickness as humanly possible. Get them in that fitness forward lane and keep them there, because I eventually want them walking into an outpatient clinic, walking into a gym. Now that I am in home health, the mission is exactly the same, but it's nice because I'm on the other side of it now, and I'm realizing how critical these patients are, how important fitness is, how critical fitness is for these folks. In home health, I'm realizing that I have a very, very important and unique opportunity to continue moving them towards wellness and towards fitness. So what I've realized is that this mission to discharge homebound status centers around getting these patients outside of their homes. So what I want to do first is give the definitions of what homebound status is. We're going to talk about why it's so important that we get our patients outside of the home and be doing our therapy there. And then we'll talk about some practical ways of how to implement this. So homebound status per Medicare was something that I did not know all of my time in acute care, and shame on me because I was recommending home health for a lot of folks and it was not appropriate. So I'm going to read what per Medicare homebound status is. So criteria 1, the patient must either, because of illness or injury, need the aid of a supportive device such as crutches, canes, wheelchairs, and walkers, the use of special transportation, or the assistance of another person to leave the home. Or they must have a condition that leaving the home is medically contraindicated. So in order to be considered homebound per Medicare, they have to meet one of those criteria. Secondly, they have to meet both of these criteria. They have to have a normal inability to leave the home, and leaving the home must require considerable and taxing effort. So when we think about someone who's homebound, this is a huge indicator of their health and their functional capacity. So let's think about this in terms of social isolation. These folks who are pretty much isolated to their homes. And Dustin has spoken a lot about this. He just did a podcast on social isolation and how important this is to be considering, especially during the holiday months, especially as it starts to get cold outside. So what we know about social isolation is that it increases risk of disability, falling, and risk of rehospitalization. So what are we seeing right now? Like, what have I been seeing with my patients? I have patients who they're so fearful of going outside that they spent the holiday completely by themselves because they were too afraid or unable to get down the street to their family's house to spend the holiday with them. That also looks like someone who they're so isolated to their home. My patient can't even get down the stairs to visit with family. So the holiday was spent. She was upstairs in her room. She couldn't even get down the stairs to visit family. And that speaks to life space mobility. And Dustin has spoken a lot about this too. So life space mobility is basically assessing patterns and functional mobility over time, literally in a geospatial sense. So AKA, like, how much space does your life occupy over time? So if you think about our homebound folks, their lives can occupy one room. I have folks who are confined to a bedroom. They never leave their bedroom. So think about the social isolation there. Think about depression that can start to set in. And then just think about from a functional capacity standpoint. These folks who can't leave a room or they can't get outside of their homes do not have dynamic balance. They don't have lower extremity strength to even cross the threshold of the door, to go an incline, a decline of the driveway, to walk over various terrains, to do a car transfer, to access the community. And we know how important it is for folks to get out and access the community. Because if our goal is to eventually have them walking into a senior center, a gym, where they can be working on their fitness with other individuals, we have to get them beyond the home. But what is the problem? What do we see in home health that is a typical plan of care? Anyone who is in home health, I want you to self-reflect right now. What does your entire plan of care look like? Do you actually get them outside the home routinely? Do you do therapy outside the home? If you do you do it right away? Or do you wait until discharge week to say, okay, let's work on a car transfer? And it's the second to last visit that you have with them and you wait until the end. What I'm realizing is that it is a complete waste of our time to keep our patients for their entire plan of care inside the home doing underdosed lower extremity Therex versus getting these patients to work on exiting their home, entering their home, getting them outside. We have to start battling this if we're going to get them to a place where they are not homebound anymore. Alex spoke in this way on one of her podcasts recently about dynamic balance training. And she was telling us to reflect, like, we need to start doing challenging dynamic balance training right away. Why do we have to do this slow progression until they look perfect doing static balance before we do dynamic and getting more complex and dynamic environments? This is the same thing for getting our patients outside. We should try to work on this day one. We don't have to wait until their balance significantly improves, it's discharge week, and then we get them outside. Think about if we were training an athlete in the gym. If we get them to do a complex Olympic lift at the end of a plan of care, they do it once, we're like, okay, you're good. You know how to do this. We're never gonna touch it again, bye. Like, you wouldn't do that. You would want to see these complex motions over and over again to see that they're done with consistency and performance. It's the same thing with getting our patients outside. We should try this day one or week one and continue to do this throughout our entire plan of care. Because we do not have time to waste. Something that I am realizing is We have 1 to 2 times a week for 30 to 60 days. And I am understanding patients when they tell us, well, home health, they come in for 15 minutes and then they leave. I am understanding that even when we are maximally efficient in a home health sense and we're getting high quality care, the amount of documentation that everyone knows about who's in this setting really limits how much time we can spend if we're not going to want to stay up till 10 p.m. doing notes. So we have to be maximally efficient right away. So practically, what does this look like? So day 1, I am talking about this with my patients and I am incorporating this into their goals because most of my patients have a goal of wanting to get out of their home, go visit friends and family. They're wanting to get back to church. They're wanting to get back to their bridge group. All of these things involve getting outside of the home and into the community, doing activities with friends and family. Then we have to work on getting them there. So I am setting the expectation day 1 on my eval that we are going to be working on getting you outside safely, in and out of the home, up and down the driveway, in and out of the car, navigating outdoor terrain. I'm setting that expectation day 1. So they know that we're going to be working on that. And I'm connecting that to their ultimate goal because working on those things may be very fearful. They may not immediately see like why that would be important. So it's our job to make that connection. We do have to assess willingness, right? So there are some patients who have no desire to leave their home and we just respect that. They have no desire, then okay. The most important thing is they can get out safely to go to a doctor's appointment. So maybe it's not my ultimate goal or focus with a patient like that. So we have to assess their willingness. And we also have to consider in that realm, especially this time of year, older adults are very weather adverse, especially this time of year. I have a patient right now, I go in every day or every visit and she is covered up in an electric blanket and she has a space heater going. And I feel awful because I am basically having to tell her to take off all of her warm clothes and all her blanket and go outside. So it's tough. It's not easy, but again, you're kind of wanting to set that expectation. Like we're going to warm you up with an exercise inside, and then I want you to have your coat and your gloves and your hat ready so that we can go outside and practice some things. We're not going to be out there the whole time, but I do want to spend some time doing some training outside. So next, we need to assess their capabilities because a lot of us, myself included, getting a patient outside, it's scary, right? I get a little knot in my stomach because that's a dicey situation. So I want to know their stability on their lower extremities. I want to do some single leg stance, testing that. I want to do some marching. I want to look at sit to stand. I want to see if a knee buckles. I want to see what their foot clearance is like when they're walking. I want to know what their reactive balance is. How easy is it for them to lose their balance with a small perturbation? How much help do I have to give them? Do they have reactive balance to where I can confidently assume that if they do lose their balance, they're going to be able to help to kind of catch themselves. So it's something that you do want to assess before you are starting to get them outside. Next, we need to do this in a graded exposure way for most of our folks. Some of them you're going to be able to say day 1, let's go outside, see how you do going down the driveway. But probably not many. So we need to start by really making sure that we're not going to overdose them in this sense. And I did this recently and it totally, it really ruined one of my sessions because I completely overdosed my patient. Before doing a whole lot of dynamic balance inside, I did just bring her right outside and telling her to go over gravel and grass, and she was so fearful. She just shut down on me. So what I could have done is, and what you guys can do in this sense, is bring the outdoors inside. kind of literally, and figuratively. So you can start, if it's not appropriate to get this person right off the bat outside, you can start by doing something like putting the gait belt down on the ground, your extra gait belt, because your other gait belt should be on them, right? So putting another gait belt on the ground, and they can do some stepping over the gait belt to work on what it would be like if they were having to go over thresholds from gravel to the driveway, over various terrains, sidewalk cracks, things like that. You can literally bring the outdoors inside. So I had a patient who really loved to collect leaves. And so what I did was I brought some leaves from outside. I brought them inside, and it was basically, I made a part of a workout, a leaf scavenger hunt. So she did some sit to stand, she did some standing marching, and then she would have to walk around through her home and reach down below, up above, and she was searching for leaves. So you can think about creating obstacle courses with things indoors that mimic things that are outdoors. So most of our patients have a lot of junk lying around the home already. Their home is already a wonderful obstacle course. Just use what you have available to you. One thing that I have used to simulate gravel, because a lot of my folks have gravel driveways, is I've gotten those, I actually had them at home, and they're like little pebbles or rocks that you kind of get in the plant store at like Home Depot, really cheap. And I spread those out underneath their rug and have them walk over their rug. So that simulates gravel. What you also could do is you could have them stand at the threshold of their door. Just stand at the threshold of their door if they're very fearful to walk outside. You can have the door open, and you could be having them stand in a staggered stance, and you can be having them look around and scan their environment and identify different things that they're looking at. So you're getting some head turning, you're stimulating the vestibular system. You're gradually exposing them to those outdoor barriers. You can progress to have them just start to work on stepping outside the threshold of the door and back in. So safe entering the home and safe exiting the home. Very, very important. So you can just start with, hey, let's do 5 exit and entries. And you just start there. Then you can continue to progress to where you're increasing their life space mobility, literally, and you're having them maybe get to where they're working in their driveway. And what's really helpful is if you make this task functional and meaningful. So a lot of my folks like to get the newspaper. Typically they have a family member bring the newspaper into them. So you can have them kind of increase their motivation with this by saying, let's go out and retrieve the newspaper. Some of my patients have dogs. They rely on friends or family to pick up the dog poop in the yard. So I have gone with my patients and said, hey, why don't you grab a baggie and we'll go out and you can pick up your dog's poop. And grabbing the newspaper and picking up dog poop are 2 meaningful things that older adults will feel very accomplished that they can do. And it's a win-win because we're getting them outdoors. Lastly, how we can really progress this is think about falls recovery outside. So what we know is that a lot of older adults fall outdoors. They fall where it's a dynamic environment, slips, trips, uneven surfaces. So we have to train them on uneven surfaces, and we want to prepare them for the worst case scenarios. So this can be getting outside and you're on the stairs and you work on boosting up on the butt. You work on trial and erroring. Hey, like if you are down on the ground, what are some ways to get you back up? Letting them go through the problem solving of figuring that out, and you're there to help. You're giving them the confidence and the capacity to recover from a fall outdoors. if you're going to really increase the intensity of a workout outside, and maybe you're having them do multiple gait trials up and down the driveway, and you're thinking, oh, but how do I give them a rest break? Like, what if they get really tired and they need to sit? I have had the family members park the car in the driveway, have the door open to the car so that as the patient is walking up and down the driveway, if they get tired, it's like having a wheelchair waiting for you. They go in and they sit down in the car seat, giving them a sitting rest break. All right, guys, I hope that this gives you some ideas on starting to get your patients outside of the home. And so day one, week one, with your homebound older adults, I want you to start thinking, how can I start getting these patients outdoors? How can I introduce this concept to them? And how can I get that ball rolling right away? All right, that's it. Have an awesome rest of your Wednesday and see you again soon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.